a messy desk, a candle, a corkboard full of debt. Every night, Erin tracked her money by candlelight. Snowball or avalanche, it didn't matter. Discipline did. She started with shame. She ended with freedom. Watch the full story, debt-free in 6 months. The fluorescent lights in the grocery store buzzed faintly, like a nervous hum in the background of Erin Thompson's life. She stood at the self-checkout, a basket perched on her hip, filled with the essentials she told herself she'd keep under control this time. Bread, milk, a bag of apples, the cheapest pasta she could find. Nothing extravagant, nothing reckless. At least, not compared to the years before. But when she slid her card, the machine chirped with that sharp little denial beep. The screen flashed in angry red letters, declined. Her stomach sank. Erin's cheeks flushed pink, freckles suddenly standing out like someone had turned up the contrast on her pale skin. She pushed her short red hair back from her eyes, pretending to re-swipe the card. She tried again. Another beep. Another denial. Behind her, someone cleared their throat. A cart squeaked. A child whined. The line was growing, and Erin felt every second press against her like weight she couldn't carry. She forced a laugh, awkward and brittle. "Oh, this machine's just touchy sometimes," she muttered, though no one had asked. But she knew it wasn't the machine. It was her. Her debt had finally caught up, and it was spilling into her groceries. The cashier, a teenager barely out of high school, scanning for trouble while leaning against the counter, glanced at her with disinterest. Erin wanted to disappear, to vanish into the linoleum tiles, to stop existing just for a moment. Her heart pounded as she fumbled for another card, the emergency one she swore she wouldn't use. She slid it. Approved. Relief came in a wave, but so did shame. She stuffed her receipt into the bottom of her bag, not daring to look at the total. She hurried past the sliding glass doors into the cold night air, her hoodie pulled tighter around her shoulders. Out in the parking lot, she finally let the truth settle in. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't the machine. This was debt. $10,000. 10,000 tiny mistakes, tiny excuses, tiny emergencies. And for the first time, Erin couldn't laugh it off. She sat in her car, groceries cooling in the back seat, and opened the Notes app on her phone. Her hands shook as she typed. "I can't live like this anymore." The words stayed there, glowing back at her, heavier than any number on a bill. That was the breaking point. But Erin's story didn't begin with that beep at the checkout. It began years earlier, with small choices that felt harmless at the time. And it was going to end somewhere else entirely, with freedom, with zero balances, with a lesson that thousands of others could follow. This was the night Erin realized that credit card debt wasn't just a number. It was a thief. And she was about to start the fight of her life to take everything back. The wind rattled the branches outside as Erin pulled into her apartment complex, a squat building with walls the color of oatmeal and parking spots barely wide enough for her Denna Corolla. She carried her grocery bags upstairs, climbed into her cluttered little one-bedroom, and dropped everything on the counter. Unpaid bills sat there too, stacked like an accusation. Red stamps, bold letters. Her laptop was still open on the kitchen table, surrounded by sticky notes scribbled with half-finished to-do lists. Email landlord about rent. Call credit card company. Check overdraft fee. She ignored them all and instead pulled out a spiral notebook, the same one she'd been doodling in since college. On the first blank page, she wrote, in thick letters, "Plan." Her handwriting was uneven, rushed. She wasn't a planner by nature. She was the kind of person who bought journals every January and abandoned them by February. But tonight felt different. Tonight wasn't about aesthetics or Instagram-worthy trackers. It was about survival. She wrote the number at the top of the page. $10,347. Her credit card debt. All of it. Raw and undeniable. Her pen hovered, then pressed harder, as though writing it down could pin it in place, keep it from growing any bigger. Her chest tightened, but she didn't stop. For the first time, she wasn't going to hide from the math. Erin thought about all the ways she'd gotten here. It wasn't a shopping spree, though that would have been easier to explain. It wasn't one single bad decision. It was the dentist bill she couldn't pay in full. The new tires she put on her car because she couldn't risk breaking down on the highway. The nights she covered drinks just to keep friends from realizing she was broke. The streaming subscription she swore she'd cancel next month. The groceries she'd charged when her checking account ran dry. It was 1,000 small leaks in a boat she never learned how to patch. She sat back in her chair, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands, and whispered out loud to no one. $10,000. How the hell do I fix this? The fridge hummed. Her neighbor's TV bled through the wall. She felt the loneliness of being 29, broke, and pretending she had her life together. And yet, underneath the panic, there was a spark. Because Erin had always been the kind of person who journaled her way through crises. Breakups, bad jobs, health scares, every season of chaos left behind pages of cramped handwriting, filled with questions and tentative answers. Maybe this would be the same. Maybe the page could hold her debt, just like it had held her heartbreak. That night, she scrolled through her phone under the blanket of her couch, searching how to pay off credit card debt fast. Debt snowball versus avalanche, which works. Budgeting when you're broke. The results felt overwhelming at first. Finance blogs with jargon, YouTube videos promising miracles, Reddit threads full of strangers arguing about interest rates. But buried in the noise, Erin found two words she could cling to. Snowball. Avalanche. Two methods. Two maps. For the first time, it wasn't just shame. It was strategy. She didn't know which map she'd follow yet. But she knew one thing. 6 months from now, her notebook wasn't going to say $10, $3.47 anymore. She closed her eyes that night with the notebook still open on the table. The word plan glowed faintly in the light from the street lamp outside. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning, and beginnings were enough. Debt doesn't arrive like a hurricane. It doesn't crash through your front door, announcing itself with thunder. It seeps, quietly, incrementally. For Erin Thompson, the beginning of her $10,000 story looked almost harmless. A free t-shirt booth at her college freshman fair. A bank rep with a clipboard. A pen in her hand, signing up for a credit card because it promised rewards points. And a free pizza voucher. She was 18. She didn't know what an APR was. That first card had a $500 limit. She told herself she'd only use it for emergencies. And at first, she did. Gas. A textbook. A late-night grocery run when the cafeteria was closed. The bills came in small, neat envelopes. $25 here, $30 there. She paid the minimum without thinking about it. That's how it began. By the time she graduated at 22, Erin had 2 cards instead of 1, each with balances that hovered near the max. Still manageable, she told herself. She had a job lined up at a marketing firm in Boston. She'd pay them off once she got her first paycheck. But her first paycheck came with rent, utilities, student loan bills, and a subway pass. She was making $38,000 a year, which felt like wealth compared to the broke years of college. But Boston rent didn't care about her optimism. Her credit cards became a cushion, and then the cushion became a habit. It wasn't designer shoes or lavish trips. It was takeout when she was too tired to cook. It was Ubers when she didn't want to wait in the rain. It was brunches with coworkers, because saying no felt like confessing weakness. The balances climbed, little by little. At 24, Erin got sick. Nothing catastrophic, just appendicitis that landed her in the ER. Insurance covered part of it, but not the whole thing. She put the $2,000 remainder on her card. That was the first time she saw a balance she couldn't imagine clearing. She made the minimum payment, and then another, and then another. Interest ballooned behind the scenes. Her debt didn't just sit there. It multiplied. At 26, she switched jobs, chasing a raise she desperately needed. She landed at a bigger firm, a better title. But the pay bump was eaten alive by lifestyle creep. A slightly nicer apartment. A few new outfits to look the part. A gym membership she used once a month. And still, every emergency, every gap, every indulgence she didn't want to admit to went on the card. By 29, Erin's debt had swollen past $10,000. She had 3 cards, each with balances that mocked her. She rotated payments, trying to stay afloat. She sometimes borrowed from one to pay another. And she was tired. The funny thing about debt is how invisible it is, until it isn't. Her friends didn't know. They saw her posting selfies with iced coffee, laughing at bars, watching shows on Friday nights. They didn't see the knot in her stomach when the bartender swiped her card. Her parents didn't know. She still wanted to look like she had it together, the daughter who made it out of their small town. She mailed them birthday gifts, even if it meant another swipe. Even her roommate didn't know. They split bills evenly, Erin always paying her half on time, because she borrowed from a car to cover the gaps. Debt was her secret, her private storm. The storm built slowly, but the silence around it made it louder. She'd wake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, adding numbers in her head like a cruel lullaby. 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. She'd tell herself she'd start a budget, but then she'd close the budgeting app halfway through setup. Too complicated. Too much math. Too much truth. Instead, she kept swiping, kept smiling, kept pretending, until the grocery store beep broke the silence. Sitting at her kitchen table that night, staring at her notebook with plan written across the top, Erin let herself replay the past decade. Every choice, every excuse, every emergency. She wasn't a bad person. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't even stupid. She was normal. And that terrified her most of all. Because if being normal could bury you in $10,000 of debt, then how many others were out there right now, pretending like she did, swiping their way into the same trap? She flipped the notebook to a clean page. At the top, she wrote how it happened. Underneath, she listed every debt-building moment she could remember. The dentist bill, the appendicitis, the Ubers, the takeout, the emergency clothes shopping spree before her second job. By the time she finished, the page was filled. She felt the weight of it in her chest, but also something new. Clarity. The lies debt told her were cracking. No big deal. Just a little. You'll pay it off later. They weren't invisible anymore. They were black ink on white paper. Erin sat back, hoodie sleeves bunched in her fists, and exhaled a shaky breath. She whispered, "Okay, I did this." Then, louder, "So I can undo it." It was the first time she believed it might be possible. That night, she opened her laptop again, diving deeper into snowball and avalanche methods. The avalanche attacked high-interest debt first, saving money long-term. The snowball started with the smallest balance, building momentum with quick wins. Both had logic. Both had science. But Erin didn't care about science alone. She needed hope. She needed to see something vanish, fast. Her eyes drifted back to her notebook, to one line in particular. Car number 1, $1,247 balance. It was the smallest. Her snowball could start there. For the first time in years, Erin felt a flicker of control. Not much, but enough. She closed the notebook, laid her head on the table, and smiled into the pages. Tomorrow, she would begin. And in 6 months, if she kept at it, those pages wouldn't say $10, $3.47 anymore. They'd say 0. The morning after the grocery store humiliation, Erin woke to the shrill buzz of her alarm clock, a gray winter light leaking through the blinds of her one-bedroom apartment. Her head ached, not from lack of sleep, but from the sheer weight of thoughts that had kept her tossing through the night. Credit cards, bills, the red decline screen replaying like a cruel gif in her brain. She dragged herself out of bed, hoodie tangled around her, hair sticking in damp tufts from where she had sweat in the night. She padded to the kitchen barefoot, the floor cold against her skin, and stared at the notebook she had left open on the table. The word plan stared back at her, in uneven ink. It didn't feel like inspiration. It felt like accusation. She poured herself coffee into a chipped mug, sat down, and flipped the notebook open again. The numbers were still there. 10,347. Smaller debts scribbled underneath. Her own confession cataloged in ballpoint pen. For a long moment, she just stared. The steam curled from her mug. The fridge hummed. Her pulse ticked in her ears. This was the moment most of her past selves would have folded. Close the notebook. Stuff in a drawer. Pretend it wasn't there. But the memory of the checkout beep burned too vividly. She whispered to herself, as if afraid someone would overhear, "No more pretending." And she picked up her pen. That morning, Erin searched again. Debt snowball versus avalanche. The avalanche method was logical. Pay off the highest interest debt first. Save money over time. Numbers-wise, it made the most sense. Blogs and financial gurus repeated the same phrase. Mathematically superior. But the snowball method had something the avalanche didn't. Quick wins. Motivation. The promise of seeing progress early, even if it wasn't technically the most efficient. Erin tapped her pen against the table. Math versus momentum, she muttered. She thought back to every abandoned planner, every forgotten app, every January resolution she had broken by February. Logic hadn't saved her before. Maybe momentum could. She circled the words in her notebook. Snowball. It was decided. That afternoon, Erin gathered every bill she could find, paper statements, email printouts, screenshots on her phone. She stacked them in the middle of her kitchen table, a messy tower of shame. For each one, she wrote, balance, minimum payment, interest rate. The pile grew, and so did her anxiety. Her knee bounced under the table, fast enough to rattle her coffee mug. Her hoodie sleeves were damp where she'd chewed them unconsciously. But line by line, card by card, the truth took shape. Car number 1, $1,247 balance. Car number 2, $3,862 balance. Car number 3, $5,238 balance. $10,347 in total. 3 cards, 3 chains, and 1 plan to break them. She rewrote them in order, smallest to largest. Her snowball roadmap. When she finished, she pushed the notebook away and stared at the ceiling. I'm going to do it, she whispered. But the whisper wasn't enough. She stood, pulled her hoodie tighter, and said louder into the empty room, I'm going to do it. Her voice cracked. It didn't sound convincing, but it was the first time she declared out loud. Sometimes, the sound mattered more than the belief. The first test came sooner than she expected. 2 days later, her coworker Jess leaned over her desk, her perfume sharp and floral, her nails clicking against Erin's desk as she chirped, happy hour tonight. You're coming, right? Erin froze. Happy hour meant $15 cocktails, overpriced sliders, splitting the bill with people who always ordered more than her. Happy hour was one of the little leaks that had flooded her boat. Erin stammered. Her old instinct was to nod, to pretend she could afford it, to swipe and deal with it later. But her notebook flashed in her mind. The snowball. Card number 1. The words no more pretending. She forced a laugh. I can't tonight. I'm working on some stuff at home. Jess wrinkled her nose, but shrugged. Your loss. As Jess walked away, Erin's heart thudded with equal parts relief and fear. She had said no. It was awkward. It was uncomfortable. But it was necessary. That night, instead of cocktails, she microwaved leftover pasta, sat at her kitchen table, and made her first extra payment on car number 1. It was only $50 above the minimum. Nothing glamorous. But watching the number shrink on her online account, even just a little, sent a jolt of electricity through her. For once, she wasn't adding to the problem. She was subtracting. Over the next week, Erin journaled obsessively. She tracked every dollar she spent, scribbling notes like, coffee $2.75, needed it. Okay with this. Impulse candy bar $1.50, not worth it, don't repeat. Groceries $42, good, bought store brand. It was clumsy at first. Her handwriting messy, her categories vague. But the act of writing gave her a sense of control she hadn't felt in years. Each page was a mirror, and though she didn't always like what she saw, at least she was looking. Her second test came at the end of the week. It was Saturday, cold and gray, and her phone buzzed with a text from an old friend. Brunch? My treat if you can't swing it. Brunch. The most tempting of traps. She could smell the mimosas in her imagination, see the avocado toast stacked high, feel the chatter and laughter she missed. But she knew my treat was rarely the truth. The bill would come, and somehow everyone would end up splitting it. She'd leave with another $40 charge bleeding onto her card. She sat on her couch, hoodie sleeves tight in her fists, staring at the message. Old Erin would have gone. Smiled. Swiped. New Erin typed. Can we do a coffee instead? I'm trying to save. Her thumb hovered before hitting send. The shame was sharp. Admitting she was saving felt like admitting weakness. But she sent it anyway. The dots bubbled. Then came the reply. Honestly, same. Coffee sounds perfect. Relief washed over her. Maybe she wasn't alone. That weekend, Erin walked to a coffee shop with her friend instead of blowing money on brunch. She ordered the cheapest black coffee, sat in the corner, and laughed until her sides hurt. For the first time in months, she enjoyed time with someone without swiping herself deeper into shame. It was small, but it was victory. At the end of her first week, Erin opened her credit card account and stared at the number again. Car number 1, $1,197. Still high, still daunting, but lower than before. $50 lower. The snowball had started to roll, and Erin, Hoodie sleeves damp from anxious chewing, freckles bright in the glow of her laptop, whispered to herself with a smile, "Okay, we're doing this." By the second week, Erin realized something terrifying. Paying off debt wasn't just about willpower. It was about systems. And she didn't have one. She knew how to juggle deadlines at work. She knew how to scroll endlessly through TikTok. She knew how to avoid numbers by shoving unopened envelopes into drawers. But she didn't know how to budget. Not really. Her budget had always been a vague mental tally. Don't spend too much on groceries. Maybe don't order DoorDash twice in one day. Pay the minimums. Hope the math worked out. It never did. Now, with her notebook open, Erin scrawled a new word across the top of the page. Budget. Her pen hovered. She didn't know what came next. That night, she curled on her couch with her laptop, hoodie hood pulled low, scrolling through articles with headlines like, "Zero-based budgeting. Why every dollar needs a job. How to use the envelope method to save money. Budgeting apps that actually work." Her eyes darted across the screen, overwhelmed. Zero-based budgeting sounded brutal. Every single dollar accounted for. No miscellaneous black hole to cover her bad habits. Every paycheck dissected like a frog in biology class, labeled and assigned. The envelope method sounded almost childish. Cash tucked into paper envelopes labeled groceries, gas, fun. Spend until the envelope's empty. No cheating. No swiping. She rubbed her forehead. Both methods seemed extreme. But extreme was probably what she needed. The next morning, she tried zero-based budgeting first. She pulled up her bank app and stared at her paycheck. $1,521.48, bi-weekly after taxes. Her rent alone was $850. Utilities averaged $140. Groceries about $200. Gas for her old Corolla, another $80. Minimum debt payments totaled $310. By the time she subtracted those, her screen mocked her with the leftovers, a handful of dollars, like scraps after a feast. She penciled them in her notebook, assigning $40 for miscellaneous, $20 for coffee/treats, $10 for savings. Every dollar accounted for. Every dollar already gone. She sat back, pale against her hoodie, freckles bright against her flushed cheeks, and muttered, "No wonder I feel broke." But seeing it all laid out, black and white, no lies, lit something inside her. This was why she never made progress before. She had never told her money where to go. She had always let it scatter like dust. Zero-based budgeting felt harsh, but also felt like honesty. Later that week, she tried the envelope method. She stopped at the bank on her lunch break, feeling awkward and self-conscious as she withdrew cash in specific amounts. The teller gave her a strange look when she requested, "Can I have this in 20s, 10s, and 5s? Back at her kitchen table, she labeled paper envelopes with a shaky Sharpie. Rent, utilities, groceries, gas, fun, debt. She stuffed bills into each, folding them neatly. It felt both empowering and absurd, like playing house. She tucked the envelopes into a shoebox and slid it under her bed. That weekend, when she went grocery shopping, she pulled out the groceries envelope, cash in hand. No card, no backup, just $70 and the knowledge that if she overspent, she was out. She walked the aisles differently. She compared prices. She skipped the fancy cheese she usually grabbed. She chose store-brand peanut butter. At checkout, she handed over crumpled bills, heart thudding. And for the first time in her adult life, she walked out of a store knowing exactly how much she had spent, because it was all she had. But discipline has a way of meeting resistance. 2 weeks in her new system, life threw the first punch. Her Corolla, faithful, dented, ancient, coughed on the highway and died. She coasted to the shoulder, hazards blinking, her stomach sinking. The tow truck ride to the mechanic cost $95. The mechanic's bill for repairs? $468. Erin stared at the invoice in the grimy waiting room, hoodie pulled over her head like armor. She only had $120 left in her miscellaneous envelope. The rest had to go on a card. She felt her throat tighten, tears threatening. She had been doing everything right, budgeting, envelopes, saying no to brunch. And still, debt had clawed back. She drove home in silence, the Corolla humming beneath her, betrayal in every sound. That night, she sat at her table with the invoice, her envelopes, and her notebook. She chewed her hoodie sleeves raw, eyes stinging. "Why do I even bother?" she whispered. The easy answer was to quit, to slide back into old habits, swipe cards, stop caring. But she looked at her notebook, the plan, the snowball roadmap, the shrinking car number 1 balance, and something inside her refused. She grabbed her pen and wrote at the top of a new page. Setbacks. Underneath, she listed. Car repair $468. Paid $120 cash. Added $348 back to debt. She circled it, drew an arrow, wrote, "This is not failure. This is life." Her shoulders shook as she wrote, tears dripping onto the paper. But the act of naming it, writing it down, transformed it. It wasn't chaos anymore. It was a line item, and line items could be managed. The next day, she called the mechanic and asked about payment plans. They didn't offer any, but the receptionist suggested applying for their branded store credit card, with 6 months no interest. For a split second, Erin considered it. Another card, another temptation. But then she saw her notebook in her mind. Plan. Snowball. 0. She forced a laugh. "No, thanks. I've got enough debt already." She hung up, proud and shaking. It wasn't victory. She still owed. But it was a choice, a boundary, a refusal to dig the hole deeper. Over the next week, Erin doubled down. She canceled her gym membership she never used. She paused her streaming services, reminding herself that the library was free. She sold 2 old coats and a coffee table on Facebook Marketplace. Every dollar went to car number 1. The balance shrank again. $1,197, $998, $873. Each payment felt like striking a match in the dark. The setback hadn't killed her plan. It had clarified it. She couldn't prevent every emergency, but she could prepare better next time. Her envelopes needed a new label. She grabbed a fresh envelope, scrawled in Sharpie. Emergency fund. She slipped a single $10 bill inside. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. On the last night of the month, Erin sat cross-legged on her bed, shoebox of envelopes spread before her, notebook balanced on her lap. The apartment was quiet, except for the muffled sound of her neighbor's TV through the wall. She held her hoodie sleeve between her teeth, writing in slow, careful strokes. End-of-month reflection. She listed. Paid $374 extra toward car number 1. Had setback with car repair. Plus $348 debt. Still, net progress. Minus $26. Learned. Need emergency fund. She stared at the numbers. A whole month of effort, and she had technically reduced her debt by only $26. It felt pathetic, laughable, insignificant. But as she sat there, pale skin flushed, freckles scattered like constellations across her nose, she realized something powerful. For the first time in her life, she knew exactly where her money had gone. Every dollar had a name. Every choice had been deliberate, and that was worth more than the number. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Next month, better." The snowball was still rolling, and Erin, hoodie tangled around her, notebook pressed against her chest, let herself believe that even tiny progress was still progress. The apartment was too quiet. Erin had always thought silence was what she wanted. No roommates, no noisy siblings, no one telling her what to do. But now, sitting at her kitchen table with envelopes spread like battle plans and a mug of reheated coffee between her hands, the silence pressed down on her like a weight. She had been in her head too long, alone with numbers, debt, shame, and the faint hum of the refrigerator. And loneliness, she realized, was expensive. Because loneliness had driven her to happy hours she couldn't afford, dinners she didn't need, and impulse Amazon orders just to feel connected to something. She needed people. She needed someone who understood why saying no to brunch felt like a war. Someone who knew what it meant to sit on the floor with envelopes and a Sharpie, trying to wrangle chaos into order. So that night, she opened her laptop and typed into the search bar, "How to pay off credit card debt fast." The results poured in: articles, ads, quick fix promises. But she ignored the scams and clicked on a Reddit link, r/personal finance. At first, she just lurked. She scrolled through thread after thread, eyes wide. Strangers posted spreadsheets of their debt payoff progress. Some owed 50,000, others hundreds of thousands, and yet they were paying it off. Slowly, bravely. People asked questions that sounded like hers. What do I pay off first? How do I stop impulse spending? Is the snowball better than the avalanche? And the answers weren't snarky. They were patient, encouraging, practical. Erin felt her chest loosen. For the first time in months, maybe years, she thought, I'm not the only one. One thread stopped her cold. A user had posted, $20K, $0 in 11 months. Here's how I did it. The post was long, detailed, raw. The user wrote about cutting out restaurants, picking up a side hustle, selling half their wardrobe, and using the snowball method. Erin devoured every line, scribbling notes in her journal. Use library for books/movies. Sell stuff, Craigslist/Facebook. Track progress visibly chart. At the bottom of the post, the user had uploaded a picture of their debt thermometer. A piece of poster board with a thermometer drawn on it, colored in each time they paid off $500. It was childish, silly, and Erin couldn't stop staring at it. Because it was visual. It was tangible. It was hope in Sharpie and poster board. The next day, Erin stopped at the dollar store and bought a piece of white poster board and a pack of markers. That night, she spread them across her floor, hoodie sleeves shoved up to her elbows, hair tied messily on top of her head. She drew a giant thermometer, wrote debt, $10,347 at the top, divided the thermometer into increments of $500. When she finished, she colored in the bottom two increments, marking the debt she had already paid down. Then she taped the poster to the wall above her desk. It looked ridiculous, childish, just like she thought. But every time she glanced up from her laptop, she saw it. A visual reminder that she wasn't stuck. She was moving. And for the first time, progress didn't feel invisible. That weekend, she gathered courage and posted on Reddit herself. $10, $347 in credit card debt. Snowball method. 2 weeks in. I feel like I'll never get there. Any advice? She stared at the blinking cursor before hitting submit, heart racing. Within hours, comments flooded in. You're doing the right thing. Small steps add up. Focus on one card at a time. Celebrate when you kill the first one. Set up an emergency fund, even if it's just $100. It'll save you from setbacks. You've got this. Strangers, real people, cheering for her. She wiped her cheeks with her hoodie sleeve, freckles wet with tears, and whispered to herself, I'm not alone. But it wasn't just strangers. The more Erin opened up online, the braver she felt offline. At work, she overheard 2 co-workers talking about student loans. Normally, Erin would have stayed silent, too ashamed to admit her situation. But this time, she said quietly, I'm paying off credit cards. Trying the snowball method. Both co-workers turned to her, surprised. One laughed lightly. Girl, same. It feels endless, doesn't it? The other nodded. I just finished paying off mine last year. It's possible. Erin blinked. She had sat next to these people for months and never knew they were fighting battles like hers. Suddenly, the office didn't feel so lonely. That evening, she journaled again. Debt is heavy, but it feels lighter when you realize everyone's carrying something. In February, Erin pushed harder. She listed more items online, old books, a lamp she never used, a pair of boots that hurt her feet. When she handed off the boots in a coffee shop parking lot, cash slipping into her hand, she felt something shift. It wasn't just about getting rid of stuff. It was about reclaiming her life. She drove home, tucked the money into her debt envelope, and colored another line on her thermometer chart. Car number 1 shrank to $724. Her snowball was rolling faster, but not every moment was triumphant. One Friday night, scrolling Reddit, Erin saw a post. Just paid off $50,000 in 18 months. The photo showed a smiling couple holding a giant sign, debt thermometer fully colored. Jealousy punched her in the gut. She slammed her laptop shut, hoodie sleeves clutched tight in her fists. Of course they did, she muttered. They probably have better jobs. Or no emergencies. Or parents to help. Her chest tightened, old bitterness rising. For a moment, the shame threatened to swallow her again. But then she remembered one of the comments she'd read earlier. Don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. She pulled a notebook toward her, scrawled those words in all caps, and underlined them twice. Her journey was hers. Slow, messy, imperfect, but real. The next morning, she logged back on and posted again. Made my first thermometer chart. Sold some stuff. Down to $724 on card number 1. Thank you for all the encouragement. It helps more than you know. The replies were instant. Yes. Keep going. That's huge progress. Celebrate it. You're inspiring me to start my own thermometer. And Erin realized something extraordinary. She wasn't just finding encouragement. She was giving it too. Her messy, hoodie-sleeved, anxious little journey was helping strangers on the internet believe in their own. That night, she stood in her living room, arms crossed, staring at the thermometer on her wall. It was still mostly empty, still mostly dead, but it wasn't blank anymore, and neither was she. By March, Erin had learned 2 things. First, her envelopes worked. She no longer wandered stores with a card she couldn't control. Every dollar had a name, and though the names weren't glamorous, rent, gas, debt, they kept her steady. Second, the snowball method was powerful, but painfully slow. Car number 1 was shrinking, yes. She had hacked away at it with stubborn persistence, coloring in her thermometer like a child with a secret art project. But the pace felt glacial. Watching balances move from 4 digits to 3 was thrilling. Yet knowing there were still thousands more lurking across her other cards made her chest ache. At this speed, she'd be at it forever. She needed more than budgeting. She needed more income. One night, sprawled on the couch with her laptop and half-eaten bowl of rice, Erin typed, "Best side hustles to make extra cash." The internet coughed up endless lists. Dog walking, freelance writing, tutoring, DoorDash, selling crafts on Etsy, online surveys. She scrolled, overwhelmed. Her hoodie sleeve slipped down over her hand as she rubbed her freckled cheek, whispering, "I don't have time for this." But then she thought about her thermometer, still mostly empty. She thought about the mechanic's bill from last month, how quickly one setback had undone weeks of progress. She leaned forward, red hair falling loose around her face. "I'll make time." The first hustle she tried was DoorDash. She signed up in a burst of energy, filled out the forms, and within days had the app glowing on her phone. Her Corolla, patched but still alive, became her new office. On a drizzly Thursday evening, she pulled into a fast food drive-thru, the app pinging in her lap. The smell of fries filled the car, making her stomach growl. She delivered the bag to a quiet suburban house, snapped a picture for proof, and drove off. By the end of the night, she had made $42. She sat in her car in the dark, rain streaking the windshield, gripping the bills and coins. Her hoodie was damp, her back sore. But her first thought was, that's an extra payment. $42 meant another line colored on the thermometer. $42 meant car number 1 shrinking faster. Her second thought came slower, heavier. I'm exhausted. Over the next 2 weeks, Erin dashed whenever she could. After work, on weekends, she learned which restaurants were quick and which ones delayed orders. She discovered that drunk college kids tipped well, while suburban families sometimes didn't tip at all. Some nights, she made $70. Some nights, only $18. But every dollar mattered. She kept meticulous notes in her journal. March 3rd, $42, 2.5 hours. March 6th, $65, 4 hours. March 7th, $23, 1 hour, not worth it. She added up her totals. $273 extra in 2 weeks. That money went straight into the debt envelope. Car number 1 plummeted to $421. Her snowball was turning into an avalanche. But hustling had a cost. By mid-March, Erin's eyes burned from long days. She dragged herself to her desk job in the morning, sluggish and bleary. Then after work, she crawled back in her car, hood pulled low, body aching as she navigated traffic for deliveries. One Friday, she pulled in her driveway at 11:30 p.m., shoulders slumped, stomach growling. She hadn't eaten dinner yet. Her envelopes sat waiting inside, her thermometer glaring from the wall. She dropped her head onto the steering wheel and whispered, "I can't keep this up." The next day, she experimented with a different hustle, freelancing. She dusted off an old profile on a gig website where she'd once half-heartedly applied for writing jobs. She rewrote her bio, describing herself as a detail-oriented editor and content writer. Then she applied to 5 postings. 2 weeks later, a client hired her to proofread blog posts. The pay wasn't glamorous, $1.15 for an hour's work, But she could do it at her kitchen table in pajamas, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands, tea steaming beside her. And unlike dashing, it didn't leave her drained. She finished her first assignment, emailed it back, and waited nervously. The reply came fast. Thanks. This is perfect. A $30 payment landed in her account. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Encouraged, Erin diversified her hustles. She still dashed a few nights a week when she had energy. She took on more freelance editing jobs, squeezing them into evenings. She sold a few more items online, books, a set of dishes, a dress she hadn't worn in years. She tracked everything obsessively in her notebook. By the end of March, she had made $612 extra. She stared at the total, freckles bright against flushed cheeks, hoodie sleeves bunched at her wrists. $612. That was almost 2 minimum payments. That was weeks of progress, condensed into 30 days. She took the cash, slid it into her debt envelope, and paid down car number 1 until the balance stood at $123. For the first time since she had started, Erin could see the end of one card. She touched her thermometer, sharp a trembling in her hand, and colored all the way to the $10,000 mark. Her debt total now stood at 4 digits. Still big, still scary, but no longer 5 digits. She whispered to herself, voice breaking, "This is working." The next week, Erin pushed harder. She accepted more proofreading jobs, dashed through rain and cold, sold a stack of DVDs to a secondhand shop. One Saturday night, she collapsed on her bed with her notebook, hoodie damp, hair tangled. She added up the numbers, hands shaking. Card number 1, $0. Her pen slipped. Tears blurred the page. She pressed the notebook to her chest and sobbed, rocking back and forth. Because after years of swiping, ignoring, avoiding, she had killed a card. The smallest one, yes. Just over $1,000 originally. But gone. The snowball had rolled. And it was only the beginning. She posted on Reddit that night. First card paid off, $10,347, $9,226. Snowball method is real. Thank you all for keeping me accountable. Replies poured in. Yes, that's huge. Celebrate it. You're officially on your way. Now take that payment and throw it to the next one. Erin grinned through tears, hoodie sleeves damp, red hair sticking to her face. She wasn't just hustling anymore. She was winning. But hustles are a balance. By April, Erin felt the strain again. Her journal entries showed the cracks. So tired today. Didn't eat dinner, bad idea. Snapped at mom on the phone, feel guilty. She knew burnout was coming. One night, she wrote, "Lesson, hustling helps. But I can't burn my life down to kill debt faster. Balance or nothing." It was another turning point. Side hustles were powerful. They were tools. But they weren't sustainable if she lost herself in them. She would need to be strategic, not desperate. And that, she realized, was the next step. The morning sunlight poured through thin blinds, striking the messy pile of notebooks on Erin's desk. Her hoodie was balled up at the corner, sleeves still ink-stained from late-night math. Her eyes blinked against the brightness, heavy from too many nights of dashing and freelancing. She had crossed a milestone. Car number 1 was dead. The joy of watching the balance hit 0 had left her floating for days. She had even allowed herself a small celebration. Homemade tacos, a rented movie, laughter echoing against the empty walls of her apartment. But now she felt wrung out. Her body ached from long shifts behind the wheel. Her eyes burned from staring at screens, editing other people's words. Her friends had started joking that she was impossible to reach. And worst of all, she had snapped at her mom. It had been a short phone call, just her mother asking how she was doing, if she was eating enough, if she was sleeping. Erin had responded sharply, "I'm fine, Mom, stop worrying," and hung up. But she wasn't fine. She wasn't sleeping. She wasn't eating enough. And she wasn't sure how long she could keep sprinting. That night, she sat at her kitchen table, notebook open, pen poised. At the top of the page, she wrote in block letters, "Balance." She underlined it twice. Then she listed what wasn't working. DoorDash late nights equals exhaustion. Skipping meals equals cranky plus drained. Snapping at people I love. Hustling nonstop, no joy. She tapped the pen against her lip. Then she wrote, "What's the point of being debt-free if I'm empty?" The words hit her chest like a stone. She stared at them for a long time, hoodie sleeves bunched in her fists, because she had been so focused on escaping debt that she had forgotten why she wanted to escape in the first place. Freedom. Peace. A life she could actually live. And if the process broke her down, would the destination even matter? The next day, Erin made a decision. She would keep hustling, but smarter. Not every night. Not until midnight. She would choose balance. She started by carving out rest days. Sundays became non-negotiable. No DoorDash. No freelancing. Just rest. At first, it felt wrong. She sat on her couch, hoodie sleeves tugged over her hands, laptop closed, fidgeting. The thermometer chart glared at her from the wall. "You're wasting time," the old voice whispered. But then another thought came. "No, I'm recharging." She let herself nap. She let herself cook slowly, chopping vegetables with music humming in the background. She even pulled out a sketchbook she hadn't touched in years and doodled messy shapes, letting her brain wander. And when Monday came, she was sharper, clearer, less brittle. But balance wasn't just about time. It was also about systems. Until now, Erin had been managing everything manually. She wrote in her notebook daily. She paid bills online, typing each payment individually. She checked bank balances obsessively. It worked, but it drained her. So one afternoon, she downloaded a budgeting app she had seen recommended on Reddit. It was sleek, modern, with little charts and colorful graphs. At first, she was intimidated. Numbers and categories swam across the screen. But as she entered her income and expenses, something clicked. The app created automatic categories: rent, groceries, transportation, debt. It showed her pie charts of where her money went. It even suggested how much she could safely allocate toward her snowball payments without leaving herself broke. She leaned back in her chair, freckles bright in the glow of her laptop, and whispered, "Why didn't I do this sooner?" She also discovered automation. The app linked directly to her bank account, allowing her to set automatic transfers. Now, the moment her paycheck hit, money moved into her debt account. Minimums were auto-paid, savings were tucked away, envelopes were tracked digitally. It wasn't perfect. She still used physical envelopes for cash, groceries, and gas, liking the tactile reminder. But automating the basics freed her from mental clutter. It was like clearing a desk full of papers into neat, labeled folders. Her brain, for the first time in months, felt lighter. Still, Erin craved something more tangible. She loved her thermometer, yes, but she wanted a way to see the whole journey. So one evening, she opened Excel on her laptop. At the top of the sheet, she typed debt tracker. She created columns for date, card, balance, payment, notes. She entered every debt, every balance, every payment she had made since January. When she finished, she added a line graph, watching the red line dip downward. It wasn't dramatic. The slope was gentle, almost flat, but it pointed in the right direction. She smiled through tired eyes, hoodie sleeves brushing the keyboard. Because that little red line told the truth, she was moving forward. And with systems in place, balance grew easier. She no longer obsessed over whether she had forgotten to pay a bill. She no longer spent hours calculating totals by hand. She still loved her notebook and Sharpies, but the app and spreadsheet did the heavy lifting. Now, she could focus her energy where it mattered, making strategic decisions, like which hustle actually gave her the best return. She analyzed her notes. DoorDash, $20 per hour on good nights, $10 per hour on bad ones, but physically draining. Freelancing, $15, 25/hour, sometimes slow to find clients, but could be done in comfort, at home, in her hoodie with tea. Selling items, one-time bursts of cash. Good for decluttering, but not sustainable. Her conclusion: focus on freelancing. Dash only on weekends if I want bonus cash. It was a revelation. She didn't have to do everything. She just had to do the right things. Balance wasn't laziness. Balance was strategy. By late April, Erin had adjusted. Her schedule looked saner. Monday to Friday, full-time job. Evenings, 1 or 2 freelance assignments, or rest. Weekends, occasional DoorDash, plus time for herself. Sundays, sacred. She journaled again. Debt is still here, but I feel human again, and that's worth just as much. One Saturday, she sat with her mom at the kitchen table. Her mother eyed her cautiously. as though afraid of another sharp reply. But Erin smiled softly, hoodie sleeves pushed back, freckles glowing in the morning light. "I'm sorry for snapping," Erin said quietly. "I've been running myself into the ground." Her mom reached across the table, squeezed her hand. "You don't have to do it all at once," she said. "It's okay to breathe." And Erin believed her. That night, Erin stared at her thermometer chart. The lines were climbing. Car number 2 was shrinking fast. But for once, she didn't feel desperate to color in another segment. She felt calm, because now she knew the journey wasn't just about speed. It was about endurance, and balance was the key. Spring crept into the city with an almost mocking warmth. Store windows filled with bright new clothes. Cafes spilled people onto sidewalks, and Erin felt the tug in her chest every time she passed a rack of sundresses or a restaurant patio buzzing with laughter. She had built momentum. 2 cards shrinking, her thermometer filling steadily. Balance in her schedule, strategy in her side hustles. But temptation has a way of showing up when you least expect it. It started small. An email pinged into her inbox. Flash sale, 70% off today only. The subject line was from one of her old favorites, an online clothing store where she used to spend hours scrolling, filling carts with items that promised newness, confidence, reinvention. She stared at the glowing discount. Her cursor hovered. Her hoodie sleeves were pulled over her hands as she whispered, "Just one dress. You've been working so hard." She imagined the package arriving, crisp tissue paper, the thrill of trying something new. But then her eyes flicked to the thermometer taped above her desk. The red line inching upward, so close to overtaking car number 2. She sat back, pale freckled skin glowing in the laptop's light, and muttered, "That dress won't feel as good as crossing this off." She closed the tab. It felt like victory and loss, both at once. The next battle came in the form of friends. A group text pinged late on a Friday. "Happy hour tomorrow. Patio season, finally." Erin stared at the messages piling in. "Yes. Margaritas on me. Count me in." Her stomach twisted. She wanted to go. To sit under string lights, sipping something fruity, laughing until her sides ached. She wanted to feel normal again. Not the girl in the hoodie with notebooks and envelopes, chasing debt like it was a second job. She typed a reply, deleted it, typed again. Finally, she wrote, "Sorry guys, can't make it. Rain check." She set the phone down, chest tight. The replies kept rolling. "Boo. We miss you." Next time. She told herself it was discipline. But alone on her couch, she felt the hollowness of missing out. That night, she journaled. She wrote in block letters, "Discipline isn't fun." Then below it, "Saying no to sales hurts. Saying no to friends hurts worse. But saying yes to debt would hurt forever." She underlined "forever" until the ink bled through the page. Then she closed the notebook and cried quietly, hoodie sleeves damp against her face. But temptations kept coming. Scrolling Instagram one evening, she saw an old coworker post about a weekend trip to Miami. Beach photos, cocktails, captions about living your best life. Erin's thumb paused. Her heart pinched. "I'm 29. Shouldn't I be traveling, too? Shouldn't I be living?" The comparison monster whispered, "What if you're wasting your 20s sitting in this apartment with envelopes?" Her face flushed. She slammed the phone down, heart racing. Then she grabbed her thermometer and held it up, glaring at the line she had colored last week. "This is living," she muttered. "Getting free is living." She repeated it until the sting faded. Still, temptation didn't only live online. It lived in the checkout line at Target, where the shelves brimmed with candles, throw pillows, makeup she didn't need. One Saturday, she stood there gripping a $12 candle in her hands. Vanilla and cedarwood. It smelled like comfort. She closed her eyes and pictured lighting it in her apartment, warm glow softening the corners of her messy desk. But then she pictured her debt balance, $7,982. She set the candle back, whispering, "Not today." Her chest tightened as she walked out empty-handed. But once in the car, the tightness gave way to pride. Because every temptation resisted wasn't just saving money. It was proof. Proof she could trust herself. Erin began developing small rituals to guard against lifestyle creep. When ads flooded her email, she unsubscribed ruthlessly. When Instagram sparked envy, she set limits on her screen time, journaling instead. When friends invited her out, she suggested alternatives. Want to come over for a movie night? How about a walk instead? At first, it felt awkward. But slowly, some friends adjusted. Her best friend Sarah came by with popcorn one Saturday, sprawling on Erin's couch as they laughed at an old comedy. It wasn't margaritas under twinkling lights, but it was connection. Real, affordable connection. And that mattered. But not every battle was won. One afternoon, exhausted after a long week, Erin wandered into a bookstore just to look. She told herself she wouldn't buy anything. Just browse, smell the paper, enjoy the quiet. But 15 minutes later, she was at the register with a $16 paperback clutched in her hoodie sleeve. She didn't even realize what she was doing until the cashier said, "That'll be $16.42. Her heart plummeted. For a second, she considered walking away, embarrassed. But instead, she slid her debit card across the counter, cheeks burning. When she got home, she dropped the book on the table and stared at it. Then she wrote in her journal, "Mistakes happen. This one doesn't ruin me. What ruins me is giving up." And she shelved the book as a reminder, not of failure, but of imperfection. Through April and May, Erin fought temptation daily. Some days she won. Some days she slipped. But overall, she noticed something. Each time she resisted, the voice of discipline grew louder. And each time she gave in, the voice of shame grew softer. Because she was learning balance. Learning that the journey wasn't about perfection, but persistence. Her debt total dipped below $7,000. The thermometer lines grew thick with red Sharpie. And though the world outside glowed with patios, vacations, sales, and parties, Erin felt a new glow inside. Not the glow of candles she couldn't afford, but the glow of progress. Debt payoff, Erin was learning, was like climbing a mountain. Every step upward was slow, deliberate, sweaty. And just when you thought you had found a steady rhythm, something shifted underfoot. Her rhythm had been steady through May. The thermometer chart glowed with fresh lines. Car number 2 was shrinking faster than she expected, thanks to freelance checks and disciplined budgeting. She was eating better, sleeping better, even smiling more often. For the first time in years, she felt ahead. And then June arrived. It started with a cough. At first, Erin dismissed it. Just a tickle in her throat. Nothing a cup of tea and an extra blanket couldn't cure. But the cough lingered. It grew harsher, clawing through her chest at night until she doubled over, hoodie sleeves pulled tight as she gasped. After 2 weeks, her coworkers noticed. "You sound terrible, Erin. You should get that checked out." She waved them off, freckled cheeks pale. She didn't want to admit the truth. She couldn't afford a doctor. Or rather, she could, but it would set her snowball back. And that thought hurt more than the cough. But one night, hunched over her notebook mid-calculation, a coughing fit shook her so violently she nearly fell from her chair. She grabbed her phone with trembling hands and scheduled an urgent care appointment. Sitting in the clinic the next morning, hoodie bunched at her elbows, she felt small under the fluorescent lights. The doctor listened to her lungs, frowned, ordered tests. "Bronchitis," he said finally. "Nothing life-threatening, but it'll need medication." Relief flooded her chest until she reached the checkout desk. The bill, $287. She blinked at the number, freckles paling. Her budget notebook flashed in her mind. $287 was almost 2 weeks of grocery money, or a full freelance paycheck, or 2 snowball payments. Her throat tightened, but she slid her debit card across the counter. The numbers on her spreadsheet would suffer, but her body came first. Back home, she dropped the prescription bag on her desk and collapsed onto the couch. Her thermometer chart loomed on the wall, bright with progress. But all she could see was the setback. In her notebook, she wrote furiously, $287 medical bill. Snowball delayed. Why now? She slammed the pen down, tears pricking her eyes. For hours, she sat there, hoodie pulled tight, staring at the chart. The red lines suddenly looked fragile, temporary, as though one gust of bad luck could erase months of sacrifice. And wasn't that the truth? One bill, one car repair, one crisis, and the whole plan could unravel. She curled into the couch, whispering, "What's the point? It'll never end." But by morning, the fog shifted. Erin woke with the taste of antibiotics on her tongue and the faint glow of her laptop still open on the desk. She dragged herself up, freckles pale, and reread her own words in the notebook. Why now? The question still stung. but a new one rose to meet it. What can I learn? She grabbed the pen. Hoodie sleeves smudged the page as she wrote beneath last night's scribbles. Setbacks are part of the journey. Build an emergency buffer. The words steadied her hand. Because deep down, she knew the truth. This wasn't the end of her snowball. It was a reminder. A reminder that debt payoff wasn't just about discipline. It was about resilience. And resilience meant planning for the unexpected. That weekend, Erin redesigned her system. She opened her budgeting app and created a new category, emergency fund. At first, she hesitated. Every dollar diverted, there would be a dollar not crushing her snowball. But then she thought of that night in urgent care, of the way her hands had trembled at the desk. A $287 bill shouldn't have felt like an earthquake. So she set a goal, $500 minimum. Enough to catch small crises. Enough to give her breathing room. She scribbled in her notebook. Emergency fund equals safety. The first deposit felt strange. $50, tucked into a digital envelope that wasn't labeled debt. She stared at the number on the screen, hoodie sleeves rolled to her elbows, chewing her lip. Part of her screamed, "This slows the snowball." But another part whispered, "This protects it." She closed the app and breathed deep. Because balance, she was learning, wasn't just about avoiding burnout. It was about cushioning life surprises. Still, the setback gnawed at her. She watched her friends post summer photos online, beach trips, rooftop bars, ice cream in the sun, and thought of her antibiotics on the counter, her dwindling grocery envelope, her fragile thermometer line. One night, Sarah texted, "Want to grab dinner this week?" My treat. Erin almost said yes immediately. A free meal, time with her best friend. What could be wrong with that? But then she paused, because she knew what my treat really meant. They'd split the bill anyway, or Erin would feel guilty and pay next time. And right now, even next time was too much. So she typed carefully, "Rain check. Still catching up after some medical bills. But let's do a walk this weekend." Sarah replied fast, "Of course. Let's bring iced coffees and make it cheap." Relief softened Erin's shoulders. Because sometimes the best friends weren't the ones who cheered your margaritas. They were the ones who walked beside you, sipping slowly, listening. By late June, Erin had adjusted. The medical bill still sat in her spreadsheet, a jagged spike in the red line of expenses. But next to it, a new green line appeared, her emergency fund, creeping upward from zero. It wasn't much, $123 by the end of the month. But it was hers. And more than the number, it was proof. Proof that she could take a hit and keep moving. Proof that resilience wasn't just about bouncing back. It was about building forward. One night, curled on her couch with her notebook, she wrote, "Lesson learned. Life will interrupt you. Bills will appear. Temptations will test you. The question isn't if, it's when. But I get to choose what happens next. And next, I choose to keep climbing." She closed the notebook, freckles catching the lamplight, and smiled softly. Because debt still towered over her. But she no longer feared the mountain shifting beneath her feet. She had balance. She had resilience. And that meant she had power. Erin sat at her desk one Saturday morning, sunlight pouring across the clutter of notebooks, envelopes, and coffee mugs. Her oversized hoodie bunched at the sleeves, her red hair still damp from a quick shower. The thermometer chart on the wall glared back at her, half-filled, stubbornly waiting for the next line. The setback from the medical bill still lingered in her mind, though she had mostly recovered her momentum. She sipped lukewarm coffee and thought, "I need order. I need something stronger than scattered notebooks and random apps. I need a system." That word, system, rang in her chest like a bell. Because debt payoff wasn't just about willpower anymore. It wasn't even about hustle. It was about building something she could lean on, something that wouldn't crumble when life threw her another curveball. She picked up her pen and wrote in her notebook, big letters filling the page. Debt-free command center. The idea grew as she scribbled beneath it. Everything in one place. Visuals I can trust. Tools I can stick with. Make it impossible to ignore. She looked around her apartment. The messy desk. The half-finished envelopes. The apps scattered across her phone. It was progress, yes, but it was chaos. And chaos had nearly broken her in June. So she decided, no more chaos. Step 1. Clear the desk. She pulled every notebook, envelope, and bill into a pile. Hoodie sleeves dusted with paper lint, freckles sharp against her pale skin. She spread everything out on the floor. Rent receipts, DoorDash pay stubs, freelance invoices, debt statements, her life in paper form. At first, it overwhelmed her. So many pages, so many numbers, each one a reminder of years of mistakes. But then she breathed deep and thought, this is the raw material of my freedom. And she began sorting. Bills in one stack, debt statements in another, receipts in a shoebox, freelance invoices clipped together. She labeled manila folders with bold black Sharpie, credit cards, rent, utilities, freelance, taxes. For the first time, her finances had categories. Homes, structure. The chaos began to shrink. Step 2, digital order. She opened her laptop, hoodie sleeve brushing the touchpad. First, she refined her Excel spreadsheet. No longer just a simple tracker, she expanded it into what she proudly titled the Master Debt Dashboard. Columns: car name, balance, minimum payment, snowball payment, date paid, notes. She added a summary page: total debt, total paid, percent complete. Then she inserted a graph. This time, not just a red line dipping downward, but a series of colored lines, each representing a card. Watching them slope in unison felt like watching chains weaken link by link. Her pale cheeks flushed with something rare: confidence. Step 3. Automation meets accountability. Her budgeting app had already proven helpful, but she hadn't fully trusted it yet. So now, she linked every account: checking, savings, freelance PayPal, even DoorDash deposits. For the first time, she saw her entire financial life on one screen. The app spit out charts: income versus expenses, categories, averages. It was messy at first, the graphs full of takeout and gas and irregular freelance payments. But after an hour of tweaking categories, the patterns revealed themselves. She muttered, hoodie sleeve tugged over her knuckles. So that's where it all went. It wasn't shame this time. It was clarity, because clarity was power. Step 4. Visual motivation. Erin still loved her thermometer, but she wanted something even more interactive. So she bought a corkboard from the dollar store. On it, she pinned index cards for every debt: card number 1, card number 2, card number 3. Each card listed balance, interest rate, and payment plan. Then she created a column of green sticky notes, $100 increments. Every time she paid $100, she'd move a sticky note from debt to paid. It looked silly at first, bright neon paper in neat little rows. But as she stuck the first few notes into the paid column, she grinned. Because it wasn't just numbers. It was proof she could touch. Step 5. Environment reset. Erin looked around her apartment. The place she had once associated with shame, unpaid bills, ignored envelopes, spirals of avoidance. Now, she wanted it to feel like Command Central. So she rearranged her desk. Laptop dead center. Corkboard to the left. Thermometer above. A jar of pens and highlighters within reach. She even cleaned, vacuumed the rug, wiped the sticky rings from coffee mugs, folded laundry. It wasn't just tidiness. It was transformation. Because for the first time, the space reflected her new identity. Not a woman drowning in debt, but a woman commanding her way out. And step 6. Rituals. Erin knew systems meant nothing without consistency. So she created weekly rituals. Every Sunday evening, hoodie sleeves rolled, she sat at her desk for what she called money hour. She opened her app, updated her spreadsheet, moved sticky notes on the board, colored in her thermometer. She reviewed the week: income, expenses, debt progress. Sometimes she played soft music. Sometimes she lit a candle. Yes, eventually, she allowed herself one. The ritual wasn't punishment. It was empowerment, because it turned money from a monster into a conversation. And Erin, freckles glowing in the lamplight, finally felt like she was speaking the language. By July, the command center was alive. Friends might have seen only a cluttered desk with posters and sticky notes. But Erin saw a cockpit, a map, a fortress. And the fortress worked. Card number 2 fell faster than expected. Each time she slid a sticky note from debt to paid, her chest filled with fire. Each time her spreadsheet dipped lower, she felt chains loosen. Each Sunday, ritual left her calmer, more in control. The debt still loomed, yes, but the fear had faded. Because now she had a system stronger than fear. One evening, Sarah came over. She paused at Erin's desk, staring at the corkboard, the thermometer, the organized folders. Whoa, Sarah laughed. This looks like a war room. Erin grinned, hoodie sleeves shoved up. That's because it is. Sarah raised an eyebrow. And you're winning? Erin tapped the thermometer with her Sharpie, red line creeping past halfway. Not yet, she said softly. But I'm close. And later that night, Erin sat alone at her command center. The corkboard glowed under the lamp. The sticky note stood tall in the paid column. The thermometer chart smiled back at her, red ink bold against white paper. She rested her chin in her hoodie sleeve and whispered to herself, "This is more than paying off debt. This is becoming someone new." And for the first time, she believed it. The command center worked. That much was clear. By the second week of July, Erin's sticky notes stacked neatly in the paid column. Her thermometer chart glowed with fresh ink, creeping higher and higher. Her master debt dashboard showed progress she could measure with certainty. More debt gone, less fear in her chest. But progress didn't silence the old voices. Sometimes, late at night, when the spreadsheets were closed and the sticky notes stopped fluttering, Erin lay awake on her couch and thought, "You should have done this years ago." Her freckles caught the dim light of her lamp as she stared at the ceiling. Hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands. The whisper in her head was cruel but familiar. You were reckless. You ignored the bills. You swiped cards for nonsense. You wasted time. You'll always be bad with money. It wasn't her debt that haunted her most anymore. It was her identity. One humid evening, unable to sleep, Erin pulled out her journal. She wrote across the top of a fresh page, "Who am I financially?" The words looked strange, but she pressed harder. "I am the girl," and then the truth spilled out. "I am the girl who ignored statements in the drawer. I am the girl who paid minimums like Band-Aids. I am the girl who bought takeout to feel less lonely. I am the girl who thought one day she'd magically make more money and it would all fix itself." The ink smeared under her hoodie sleeve as she wiped at her eyes. Then she turned the page and wrote again. "I am the woman who—" Her pen hesitated, but slowly the sentences formed. "I am the woman who tracks every dollar. I am the woman who pays more than the minimum. I am the woman who builds systems. I am the woman who faces her numbers even when they hurt. I am the woman who is changing." She stared at the two lists side by side. The girl, the woman, and she whispered into the quiet, "I don't have to stay the girl." The shift wasn't instant. The shame still crept in during random moments, like standing in line at the pharmacy, or scrolling past friends' vacation posts, or opening an email from her bank. But now, Erin fought back with her journal. Every time the shame whispered, she wrote a counter-story. When she caught herself thinking, "I'm bad with money," she wrote, "I am learning money." When she thought, "I wasted years," she wrote, "I'm making the most of these years." When she thought, "I'll never get ahead," she wrote, "I am already ahead of where I was." It wasn't toxic positivity. It was reframing, reauthoring. Because Erin realized she wasn't just paying off debt. She was rewriting who she believed herself to be. One Saturday, Sarah came by again. They sat on the couch with iced coffees, laughing about an old coworker's bizarre social media posts. Then Sarah grew serious. "You seem different lately." Erin tugged at her hoodie sleeve. "Different how?" "Lighter. Like before, you were always stressed. And now—" "Yeah, you're still stressed," Sarah laughed. "But it's like you're carrying it differently." Erin sipped her coffee, freckles flushed pink. "I guess I am. I finally feel like I'm not drowning." Sarah studied her. "That's big, Erin. You've always been so hard on yourself. But you're actually proud now, aren't you?" The question caught her off guard. Proud? Was she? She looked toward her desk, where the command center gleamed in the corner of her eye. Sticky notes shining like battle medals. She smiled faintly. "Yeah, maybe I am." But the real breakthrough came one quiet night in August. Erin had just finished her Sunday money hour. Spreadsheet updated. Sticky notes moved. Thermometer filled another inch. She closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair, hoodie bunched at the elbows, eyes stinging from screen time. On the corkboard, her sticky notes glowed under the lamp. Rows of neon green marching toward victory. And suddenly, she saw it. Not the numbers. Not the balances. But the person she had become. The girl who once curled on the couch, hiding from bills. She wouldn't recognize this version of herself. This Erin faced her numbers head-on. This Erin made hard choices. This Erin created systems, discipline, structure. This Erin believed in her own power. She whispered aloud, as if testing the words. I am good with money. At first, her stomach tightened. The old identity fought back, hissing, no, you're not. But she said it again, firmer. I am good with money. And the longer she sat there, freckles catching the lamplight, the more true it felt. Because it wasn't about perfection. It was about change. And change was proof. The next day, Erin did something she had never done before. She wrote herself a letter. Dear Erin, I forgive you. I forgive you for the swipes and the splurges. I forgive you for the unopened statements. I forgive you for the late fees, the overdrafts, the nights you ordered takeout because you couldn't face your loneliness. You didn't know better then, but you do now. And now, you're building something new. You are good with money. You are disciplined. You are free. Love. Me. She folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and pinned it to the corkboard beneath her thermometer. Every Sunday after, she read it during money hour. And slowly, it became the truth. By late August, Erin's debt total dipped below $6,000. Her emergency fund crept toward $400. But the numbers weren't the only markers of progress. Her laughter came easier. Her posture straightened. Her journal pages brimmed with hope instead of panic. Because Erin wasn't just changing her budget. She was changing her identity. And once she believed she was the kind of woman who could handle money, the debt didn't stand a chance. The summer heat lingered into September, sticky and restless. Erin's little apartment buzzed with the hum of a tired fan. She sat at her desk, hoodie sleeves shoved above her elbows despite the warmth, freckles damp against her pale skin. Her spreadsheet glowed with progress. The total debt balance had dipped under $6,000. The thermometer chart rose higher with each careful line of red ink. The corkboard sticky notes now leaned heavily toward the paid side, like a forest bending toward light. She should have felt unstoppable, but a single voicemail undid her calm. It was her mother's voice, tight and clipped. Erin, we need to talk. I saw something come through the mail. Another credit card statement. Honey, we're worried. Call me back. Erin sat frozen on her couch, hoodie pulled tight, heart thudding. The statement, the one she thought she'd redirected, but had slipped through to her parents' house, the old address still tied to one stubborn account. She pressed her palms to her face. 29 years old, building her own command center, carving her way out of debt with discipline and grit, and yet one envelope had reduced her to the girl again. The girl who had hidden bills in drawers. The girl who lied with nervous laughs. The girl who avoided hard conversations until they exploded. She whispered into her sleeve, I don't want to do this. But deep down, she knew she had to. The following Saturday, she drove the 2 hours to her parents' house. The old suburban street looked the same. Trimmed hedges, kids' bikes in driveways. A golden retriever sprawled on a porch. She parked, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Inside, the air smelled of lemon cleaner. Her mother sat at the kitchen table, unopened envelope in hand. Her father leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The sight made Erin's stomach knot. Her mother spoke first. We thought you were done with this. After everything. After we helped with that last mess. Erin's cheeks flushed hot, freckles bright against her pale skin. I am working on it. I swear. It's different this time. Her father raised an eyebrow. Different how? We've heard that before. The old shame flooded her chest. For years, she had been bad with money in their eyes. The irresponsible one. The one who swiped credit cards, ignored consequences, needed bailing out. And now, standing in the same kitchen where she once cried over overdraft fees, she felt like that girl again. But she wasn't that girl. Not anymore. She gripped the back of a chair, hoodie sleeve twisted in her fist, and forced her voice steady. I'm not asking for help. I don't need a bailout. What I need is for you to understand. I'm already fixing it. Her parents exchanged a look. Her mother softened, but her father frowned. Fixing it how? Talk is cheap, Erin. The words stung. But Erin inhaled deeply and reached in her bag. She pulled out her journal, her thermometer chart, and even printed graphs from her spreadsheet. She spread them across the table like blueprints. Look, this is the snowball method. I've paid off 2 cards already. Here's the graph. Here's the schedule for the next 4 months. And here's my emergency fund. I'm building that too. I'm not just paying debt. I'm building a system. Her parents stared at the pages. The thermometer chart, with its bold red climb. The sticky note photo she had taped in. The neat columns of her spreadsheet. For a long moment, silence. Then her mother's eyes softened. You made all this? Erin nodded, voice cracking. Yes. Every week. I don't hide from it anymore. I face it. And it's working. Her father's frown eased, just slightly. You're really doing this? Tears pricked Erin's eyes. I am. I swear I am. The kitchen felt different after that. Her parents weren't suddenly her cheerleaders. They still carried years of skepticism, still watched her with cautious eyes. But something had shifted. Her mother folded the envelope and slid it aside. Okay, then show us when it's gone. We'll be proud to see it. It wasn't effusive praise. But for Erin, it was enough. Because for the first time in years, she hadn't begged for help, lied, or hid. She had stood her ground. She had presented proof. And in doing so, she had begun rewriting not just her own identity, but the one her parents held of her. Driving home that night, windows rolled down. Erin felt the old shame loosening its grip. It wasn't gone, but it no longer defined her. She thought of the journal entry she had written weeks before. I am the woman who faces her numbers even when they hurt. Now she added a new truth. I am the woman who faces her past, even when it hurts. And she realized forgiveness wasn't just for herself. It was for them too. Back at her command center, Erin lit a small candle, hoodie sleeves brushing the flame as she carefully set it down. She opened her journal and wrote, forgiveness is financial too. I can't move forward if I'm chained to shame. Today I cut another chain. The sticky notes glowed on the corkboard. The thermometer chart reached higher. Her spreadsheet balance dipped lower. But what mattered most wasn't the numbers. It was that Erin, freckles shining in lamplight, had finally begun to see herself not as the girl who failed, but as the woman who transformed. And that shift made her unstoppable. The command center had transformed her apartment into a cockpit of discipline. Her parents' confrontation had forced her to claim her progress with proof. But September brought something new, a creeping thought Erin couldn't shake. What if I wasn't doing this alone? Not in the sense of asking for money or rescue. She no longer needed that. But what if she allowed her journey to be seen? The idea frightened her. For years, she had hidden from judgment, avoided conversations about money, laughed off her irresponsibility. Even her closest friends knew only fragments of her debt story. Yet part of her wondered if accountability could push her further. So one Sunday evening, hoodie sleeves rolled, freckles flushed in lamplight, Erin opened her laptop and hovered over a blank post on a forum she had once lurked on in silence. A subreddit called r/personal finance. Her fingers trembled as she typed. Hi, my name's Erin. I'm 29, and I started with $10,000 in credit card debt this spring. I've paid off $4,000 so far using the snowball method. I built a spreadsheet and a corkboard system that keeps me motivated. My goal is to be debt-free by the end of the year. I don't have it all figured out, but for once, I'm not hiding. I just want to share my progress, because I know I can't be the only one. She stared at the blinking cursor. Every instinct screamed, don't post. You'll sound stupid. They'll tear you apart. But then she thought of the girl she used to be, curled on the couch in shame. And she hit submit. The response stunned her. Hundreds of upvotes poured in. Dozens of comments stacked beneath her post. Holy crap, for $1,000 already? That's amazing. Keep going. Snowball worked for me too. You're right on track. Don't beat yourself up for starting late. What matters is you started. Opie, your system sounds awesome. Can you share a pic of your corkboard? Erin sat at her desk, hoodie sleeve over her mouth, eyes wide. She hadn't expected kindness. She hadn't expected community. For years, she had believed her money shame was unique, proof of her incompetence. But here were strangers, cheering her on, asking for tips, calling her Opie like she belonged. Her freckles glowed as she whispered, half laughing. They actually care. The next week, she shared again, this time with photos. One shot of her thermometer chart, another of her sticky note board, even a snapshot of her master debt dashboard with balances blurred. The comments exploded. Opie, your visual system is brilliant. I'm stealing this. I wish I had done something like this when I was in debt. This makes me want to start today. Thank you for posting. And then something shifted. People weren't just encouraging her. They were looking to her for inspiration. Erin blinked at the comments. Her? An example? For so long, she had been the warning, the screw-up, the family disappointment. Now strangers saw her as proof. Proof that change was possible. The realization lit something fierce inside her. Accountability wasn't just about pressure anymore. It was fuel. Because every Sunday, when she updated her corkboard, she thought not only of herself, but of the people waiting for her next post. She imagined someone across the country, scrolling Reddit with their own unopened statements in hand, needing a nudge. And she thought, if I can show up for them, I can show up for me. By October, Erin created a side Instagram account under a pseudonym at Debt-Free Erin. She posted pictures of her thermometer, sticky notes, and Sunday money hour setups. Captions were short but raw. Paid off another $500. Every dollar is a step out of shame. This chart is more than ink. It's proof I'm changing. Debt-free by December. Hold me to it. At first, it was just a handful of followers, other debt payoff accounts, a few curious lurkers. But slowly, messages trickled in. Thank you for posting this. I thought I was alone. I'm starting my own chart today. I needed this reminder to keep going. Erin sat on her couch, hoodie pulled tight, freckles glowing from phone light, reading messages from people she'd never met. And for the first time, her debt didn't feel like isolation. It felt like connection. Of course, not everyone understood. When Sarah discovered the Instagram, she raised an eyebrow over iced coffee. So you're like a debt influencer now? Erin laughed nervously. Hardly. It's just accountability. Sarah smirked. Hey, if it works, it works. Just don't start selling detox teas. They both burst out laughing, tension broken. But later that night, Erin sat at her command center, staring at her corkboard. Influencer? No. But maybe leader. Maybe example. The thought scared her, but it also made her shoulders straighten. Because if she could inspire even one person to pick up a pen, track a dollar, or face their statements, then maybe her mess had meaning. Public accountability came with risks, though. One night, a stranger commented on her post. Why don't you just declare bankruptcy and move on? This is pointless. Erin's stomach twisted. For a moment, the old shame returned, hissing. They're right. You're wasting time. You're not good enough. But then she took a breath and replied, calm and firm. Bankruptcy is a valid choice for some people. For me, paying this off is about more than numbers. It's about proving to myself I can change. And it's working. Hundreds of likes piled onto her reply. And for once, Erin wasn't silenced by doubt. She had spoken her truth, and it stood. Her Sunday rituals grew richer. She still tracked every dollar, moved every sticky note, colored her thermometer. But now, she added a step. She posted updates. She wrote captions. She connected with strangers fighting their own battles. And every post reminded her. She wasn't the girl hiding bills in drawers anymore. She wasn't the daughter ashamed at the kitchen table. She was the woman leading by example. By mid-October, something remarkable happened. Her debt balance dipped under $4,000. And when she posted the update, her community erupted. You're killing it. Halfway in 6 months? Unreal. OP, you're giving me hope. She sat at her desk, hoodie sleeves brushing her cheeks as she covered her smile, tears pricking her eyes. Because it wasn't just strangers celebrating her. It was her too. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel it fully, pride. Not arrogance. Not denial. Pride in the sweat, the discipline, the nights of saying no, the hours of DoorDash, the quiet Sundays with her command center. Pride in being someone she once believed she couldn't be. That night, she wrote in her journal, debt is leaving. Shame is leaving. But the real victory is this. I'm becoming someone I want to be. The words felt like prophecy. And as she blew out her candle, freckles glowing in the smoke's curl, Erin realized she no longer feared being seen. Because she wasn't hiding anymore. She was rising. By October's end, Erin's spreadsheet stared back with a number she hadn't seen in years. $3,950. Less than $4,000. She sat in her chair, hoodie sleeves draped over the keyboard, freckles shining in the glow of her lamp. Her thermometer chart was nearly half filled with red ink, sticky notes stacked thick in the paid column like a pile of trophies. For the first time, the finish line felt real. But real also meant urgent. Because Erin knew, the last stretch wasn't just about coasting. It was about sprinting. She called it the final sprint in her journal. Across the top of a fresh page, She wrote in block letters. October to December, all in. And beneath, she made a list, not of shame this time, not of failures, but of weapons. Weapons she would use to finish this fight. Snowball, already rolling strong. Side hustles, ready to multiply. Budget cuts, sharpened like knives. Community, waiting to cheer her on. And discipline, her strongest weapon now. She leaned back, hoodie sleeve brushing her cheek, and whispered, "Let's finish this." The next Sunday money hour, she went further than she ever had before. She didn't just track dollars. She interrogated them. Every expense line on her spreadsheet became a question. Spotify, do I need it? Or can I switch to free with ads? Grocery, am I buying convenience or ingredients? Utilities, can I call and negotiate? Rent, can I sublet my parking spot? The questions sliced through her budget like blades. By the end, she had cut another $200 from her monthly spending. Small sacrifices stacked tall. One less subscription, cheaper groceries, renegotiated internet. She updated her spreadsheet. The new projection blinked back. Debt-free by late December, if she stayed ruthless. Her freckles burned pink with the thrill of it. Side hustles became her second weapon. She picked up extra DoorDash shifts, rolling through cold October nights with hoodie pulled over her short red hair, the smell of takeout filling her car. Each delivery became a symbol. Not just food, not just tips, progress. $12 here, $18 there. Every dollar scribbled into her tracking app, then transferred onto the sticky notes when she got home. She called them debt bullets, each one striking down another chunk of balance. And the more she delivered, the lighter she felt. Because Erin realized she wasn't working for survival anymore. She was working for freedom. Her online community became her third weapon. When she posted about her final sprint, the comments erupted. "Go Erin, you've got this. I'm sprinting with you. Let's kill our balances together. OP, you've inspired me to start my own corkboard." She laughed aloud at her desk, hoodie sleeves tugged to her chin, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. Because now, she wasn't just sprinting alone. She was sprinting with an army. But sprinting wasn't easy. October nights blurred into November mornings. Her apartment grew colder, her meals plainer, her schedule tighter. There were moments she wavered. Like when Sarah invited her out for dinner at a trendy new spot, and Erin's stomach clenched with longing. Or when she walked past a clothing rack, her fingers grazing the fabric she couldn't afford. Or when exhaustion pressed her into the couch, begging her to skip a delivery shift. In those moments, the shame tried to creep back in. The whispers of the girl who once gave up. But Erin fought back. She lit her candle, opened her journal, and wrote reminders. This is temporary. This is proof. This is freedom. And then she kept going. Her thermometer chart climbed. By mid-November, the red ink reached nearly 3/4. Her sticky notes shrank into the single digits. And when she updated her community, the comments multiplied. "You're so close. This is insane progress. Don't stop now. I can't wait to see your debt-free post." Their excitement mirrored her own, and each word reminded her she wasn't just chasing zero. She was chasing transformation. Thanksgiving arrived. At her parents' house, the table groaned with turkey and stuffing. Relatives laughed, glasses clinked, and Erin sat between cousins swapping vacation stories. She felt the old sting of comparison. Vacations, shopping, upgrades, all things she had denied herself. But instead of shame, a different pride swelled in her chest. Because while they talked of trips, she thought of freedom. While they flaunted purchases, she thought of progress. And for once, she didn't feel less than. She felt more. Her father even asked, quietly, "How's the plan going?" Erin smiled, freckles soft in candlelight. "Down to under $3,000. His eyebrows rose. "That fast?" She nodded, the pride no longer hidden. "By Christmas, I'll be done." And for the first time, he didn't frown. He said, simply, "Good for you, kid." The words warmed her more than the turkey ever could. Back at her apartment, Erin stared at her corkboard. Only 6 sticky notes left. She touched them gently, hoodie sleeve brushing paper, as though they were the last enemies standing. And she whispered, "You're not going to make it to next year." Her freckles glowed in the lamplight, determination set like stone. Because Erin knew, the final sprint wasn't just about paying debt. It was about proving to herself, and to everyone who ever doubted, that she could finish. and finished strong. December crept in with sharp air and glowing lights. Everywhere Erin went, the world shouted spend. Storefronts glittered with sales. Ads filled her phone with perfect gifts. Friends texted about holiday plans and parties. But Erin's apartment looked different. Bare walls, plain meals, her command center glowing steady. Because for her, December meant one thing: the finish line. Less than $3,000 stood between her and freedom, and she would not let Christmas derail her. Still, temptation was brutal. One night, scrolling through Instagram, Erin saw Sarah posting photos in a sparkling dress at holiday gala. Her smile bright, champagne glass raised. Erin looked down at her hoodie, sleeves stretched and faded, yoga pants worn thin. She felt the ache of missing out, the ache of not shining. Her freckles flushed with shame. What if I'm wasting my 20s in sacrifice? What if freedom won't feel worth it? She shut her phone with trembling hands, lit her candle, and pulled open her journal. On the page, she scrawled, "I will not trade long-term freedom for one night of glitter." The words steadied her breath. Because Erin knew, the party ended. The champagne emptied. But freedom? That lasted. The final sprint was taking everything from her. Her body was tired from late-night DoorDash runs. Her fridge was stocked with beans, rice, and eggs. Her calendar was stripped of outings. But her spreadsheet glowed with progress. $2,700. $2,400. $2,100. Each payment felt like carving away stone, revealing the life hidden underneath. Yet the closer she got, the heavier the weight seemed. Because the last miles of a marathon aren't the easiest. They're the hardest. Her discipline wavered. Her patience cracked. And one cold December night, she nearly gave up. She had just finished a delivery shift, fingers numb on the steering wheel. Snow fell thick, headlights carving tunnels through the white. Her stomach ached with hunger. Her car smelled like fried chicken from a delivery. And for the first time in months, she caved. She pulled through the drive-thru, ordered a meal she hadn't budgeted, and ate in the parking lot, hoodie pulled tight, tears stinging her freckles. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the failure. She whispered through sobs, "I'm so close. Why can't I just be stronger?" The shame pressed heavy. The girl she thought she had buried whispered back, "You'll never change. You'll always slip." But then, a different voice rose. A steadier one, the woman she had been becoming. And she whispered too, "This one meal doesn't undo 6 months. One slip doesn't erase the sprint. You are not the girl anymore. You are the woman who finishes." She wiped her tears on her sleeve, threw away the wrapper, and drove home. At her command center, she lit the candle and opened her journal. On the page, she wrote, "Forgiveness is part of discipline. I don't need perfection. I need persistence." She stared at the words, freckles wet with tears, and realized, maybe the breaking point wasn't a sign of weakness. Maybe it was proof she was pushing hard enough. The next morning, she doubled down. She signed up for 2 extra shifts. She sold a piece of furniture online. She returned an unused coat for store credit and bought groceries with it. Every dollar went to the debt. Her spreadsheet balance dipped below $2,000. And when she posted the update, her community erupted. "You're almost there. Final $2,000. You've got this, OP." This is history in the making. Their words carried her through the exhaustion, through the temptations, through the cold nights. Because accountability wasn't just about strangers now. It was about belonging. It was about not letting down the people who believed in her. Mid-December, Erin sat at her desk, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands, staring at her corkboard. Only 3 sticky notes left. She touched them gently, heart pounding. 3 enemies left. 3 weights to lift. 3 locks to break. And she knew she would break them. Because the breaking point hadn't ended her. It had forged her. Christmas approached. At her parents' house, the tree sparkled with ornaments collected through decades. Her cousins traded gifts, paper flying, laughter filling the room. Erin sat quietly, sipping hot cocoa, freckles flushed in the glow. For the first time, she didn't feel envy. She felt peace. Because her gift wasn't under the tree. It was waiting in her command center. A gift she had built herself. The gift of freedom. On Christmas night, back in her apartment, Erin lit her candle, opened her journal, and wrote one line. "Debt-free is coming." And when she blew out the flame, the smoke curled upward like a promise. The final week of December arrived like a drumbeat in Erin's chest. Outside, the city was wrapped in lights and chaos. Families rushed through crowded stores with bags heavy in their hands. Billboards flashed red sale signs like sirens. The air smelled of cinnamon and exhaust. But inside Erin's apartment, the world felt still. The air was sharp with winter, but the quiet hummed with a different kind of electricity. Her command center sat glowing in the corner, her laptop waiting, the corkboard nearly bare. And on that corkboard hung only one note. A neon pink square, slightly curling at the edges, taped to the board like a stubborn final boss in a video game. Written in thick black marker. $742. That was it. Not $10,000. Not $5,000. Just $742. Her freckles tightened across her cheeks as she whispered the number out loud. Hoodie sleeves tugged over her hands. 742. For months, she had counted backwards, peeling sticky notes from that board like enemies falling one by one. But this was the last, and her chest ached with the weight of it. The morning of December 28th, Erin woke before the alarm. The sky outside was still black, snow dusting the windowsill. She sat up slowly, heart pounding already, and walked barefoot to her command center. She lit the candle, its small flame reflecting in her pale skin and short red hair. The smoke curled upward, as if the candle itself knew this was different. She opened her journal, pen trembling in her hand. Across the top of a clean page, she wrote, "Final balance." And beneath it, in large letters, 742. She traced the numbers over and over, the ink pressing deep into the paper. Then, in smaller letters, she wrote the promise. "Tomorrow, I pay it all." But the day didn't glide smoothly. Freedom had a way of testing you at the door. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Holiday dinner tonight? Everyone's going. Where's something cute?" Erin's stomach sank. She opened her closet, staring at the same rotation of hoodies and yoga pants. The sparkly dress from years ago hung limp, outdated, a memory of credit card spending she now hated. Her freckles burned with embarrassment. She didn't want to show up looking like the broke one. She typed and deleted 3 responses. Finally, she wrote, "Can't make it tonight. Final sprint." Sarah's reply was kind. "You're almost there. I'm proud of you." Erin set her phone down and exhaled. It was a small moment, but one more reminder that sacrifice still stung. That evening, Erin drove another DoorDash shift through falling snow. Her car heater groaned against the cold, her hands stiff inside thin gloves. Bag after bag filled her back seat, the smell of fried food and coffee sinking into her hoodie. But every delivery brought her closer. A $14 tip, a $9 rush order, a $21 batch delivery. She tracked each one on her phone, and when she stopped at a red light, she whispered the math. 742 minus 14, minus 9, minus 21. Her voice trembled, almost free. By the time she pulled back into her apartment lot after midnight, she had the cash she needed. Exhausted but alive, she shuffled upstairs, hoodie damp from melted snow. The corkboard glowed softly in the lamplight. Only one sticky note remained. She touched it gently, the paper cool under her fingers, and she whispered, "Tomorrow, you're gone." December 29th, 8 a.m., the day she had waited for. Erin brewed coffee, the steam fogging her freckles as she sat at her desk. Her hoodie hung loose, her hair sticking in odd directions, but her posture was rigid, focused. The candle flickered beside her laptop as she opened the browser. Her heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing in her chest as she typed her login. The website loaded, slow as molasses. Finally, balance, $742. Due, $742. Her cursor hovered over the button, pay balance. Her breath caught, her freckles flushed, and suddenly, a wave of memories hit her like a flood. She remembered the panic of her first decline card, standing in the grocery store with strangers staring. She remembered the nights she shoved unopened envelopes into a drawer, hoping numbers would disappear if she ignored them. She remembered her father's frown across the dinner table, the disappointment she felt like a stone. She remembered the candle's first flame back in July, her voice cracking as she whispered, "This changes now." She remembered the sticky notes lined in cruel columns, a mountain of neon debt. She remembered the Sunday rituals, the thermometer chart, the budgeting app, the fights with herself over Starbucks, the cold nights delivering orders while the world slept. She remembered the breaking point at the drive-thru, sobbing into her hoodie sleeve, and the voice that whispered, "Forgiveness is part of discipline." And she remembered the support, strangers online cheering her on, telling her she was proof, telling her she mattered. It all came rushing back in that single glowing number on her screen, 742. Her eyes filled with tears. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about identity. The woman sitting at this desk was not the same girl who once ran from bills. She was not the girl who let shame define her. She was not the girl who gave up. She was the woman who fought, who built, who sprinted. And now, she was the woman who finished. Her cursor hovered. Her breath slowed. And she whispered, steady and clear, "Goodbye, debt." She clicked. The screen froze for a heartbeat. Then it loaded. Payment successful. Balance, $0. Erin collapsed forward, hoodie sleeves pressed to her face as sobs shook her shoulders. But these were not sobs of shame. They were sobs of victory. She laughed through the tears, freckles wet, her short red hair falling over her cheeks. Her thermometer chart waited, a sliver of white space begging for ink. With trembling hands, she grabbed her marker and filled in the final section, the line complete. Then she turned to the corkboard, ripped down the last sticky note, crumpled it in her palm, and tossed it onto the mountain of paid notes. The board stood empty. For the first time in years, empty. And it was the most beautiful sight she had ever seen. She stumbled back, laughing and crying, pacing the tiny apartment. Her voice cracked as she repeated it aloud. "I did it. I did it. I'm free." The word free filled the room like sunlight. She ran to the window, threw it open, and let the icy air wash over her. Snowflakes kissed her skin as she leaned out, freckles glowing. And she shouted into the winter morning, voice raw and unafraid, "I'm debt-free." The sound echoed against brick walls and empty streets. Neighbors may have heard. She didn't care. Because for once, she wasn't hiding. She was celebrating. That night, Erin lit her candle one more time. She opened her journal to a fresh page and wrote with careful, deliberate strokes. December 29th, 2025. Debt-free. This is not the end. This is the beginning. She pressed the pen harder, the ink bold, final, permanent. Then she closed the journal, blew out the candle, and sat in the silence. But the silence was no longer heavy, no longer suffocating. Now it was open, a silence filled with possibility. And Erin Thompson, hoodie-worn, freckle-faced, red-haired, and transformed, was finally ready to step into it. The morning after freedom felt strange. Erin woke to the same weak winter light creeping across her blinds, the same hum of her heater rattling in the corner. Her apartment hadn't changed. Her couch was still thrift store gray, her dishes stacked in the sink, her hoodie still draped over the chair she never pushed in. And yet, everything had changed. Because last night, her screen had read, balance, $0. For the first time in her adult life, she didn't owe anyone a single cent. But what surprised Erin most was the silence. Debt had always hummed in the background of her thoughts, like static. Don't forget the due date. What if you can't make the payment? Why did you buy that dress? How long until this balance grows again? It was a constant whisper, pulling at her sleeve, darkening her mood. And now, nothing. She lay in bed listening to the hum of her fridge and realized the static was gone. It felt unsettling, like a phantom limb. She whispered into the air, "I don't owe anyone." Her freckles flushed as the words left her mouth. She smiled into her pillow. And then she laughed, because for once, it was true. That day, she celebrated quietly. She didn't throw a party. She didn't buy champagne or balloons. Instead, she put on her oversized hoodie, brewed coffee, and sat at her command center like always. But this time, the corkboard was empty. No sticky notes. No neon reminders of failure. Just bare cork and thumbtacks. And her thermometer chart, completely filled in, the red line reaching the very top. It looked like a monument now, not a chore. She ran her fingers over it, remembering the nights she almost quit, the weeks she stretched rice and beans, the deliveries through snowstorms. And she whispered, "Worth it." But Erin knew something important. Debt-free wasn't the finish line. It was the starting line. And she couldn't afford to drift into carelessness now. She remembered the shame of her lowest point, when her father's disappointment carved into her chest. She never wanted to go back there. So instead of asking, "What should I buy now that I'm free?" she asked a harder question. "How do I stay free?" That night, Erin opened a fresh notebook. On the first page, she wrote in big bold letters, "Budget after zero." She listed her income. She listed her living expenses, rent, utilities, groceries, gas. And then she wrote 3 new categories: emergency fund, retirement, fun. She stared at the word fun for a long moment, freckles furrowed. For 6 months, she had starved herself of it. But fun wasn't the enemy. Debt was. Fun, in moderation, could be a friend again. And she realized budgeting wasn't punishment. It was protection. Still, she hesitated. Because while she knew how to pay off, she didn't know how to save. Debt payoff had been a sprint, fueled by urgency. But saving? Investing? That felt like a marathon, long and slow. And Erin wasn't sure if she had the patience. She scribbled in her journal, "How do I build wealth without losing momentum?" The question stared back, unanswered. For the first time since clicking pay, she felt a flicker of fear. What if she beat debt but never learned freedom? To quiet her thoughts, she logged into the online forum where she'd shared her journey. She typed an update. Debt-free. $10,000 paid off in 6 months. What now? She pressed post, and within minutes, replies poured in. Emergency fund first. Save at least 3 to 6 months of expenses. Open a Roth IRA. Start now, even small. Congrats. Don't forget to celebrate yourself, too. Dozens of strangers, cheering her into the next chapter. Erin leaned back, hoodie sleeves covering her hands, and smiled. Because the journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. The first weekend of January, Erin sat at her command center for her new ritual. She didn't draw a thermometer chart this time. Instead, she created 3 jars. Not real jars, Excel cells labeled emergency fund, retirement, fun. And every paycheck, she began splitting $300 into emergency, $200 into retirement, $100 into fun. Her rent and groceries still fit. Her gas tank stayed full. But now, instead of throwing everything at sticky notes, she was planting seeds. And though the progress felt slow, tiny balances instead of sweeping victories, something inside her felt steady. Because now, she wasn't fighting a fire. She was building a home. One Saturday morning, Erin walked into her kitchen and realized she had groceries stocked without fear. Eggs, milk, fresh vegetables. Not luxuries, not indulgence, just enough. And enough felt incredible. She cooked an omelet, plated it, sat at her tiny kitchen table, and smiled as she ate. Debt had stolen her peace. Now she was reclaiming it bite by bite. But not everything was simple. In mid-January, Sarah invited her out again. This time, Erin said yes. She wore her old, sparkly dress, not because it was new or perfect, but because she wanted to shine again. At the restaurant, menus glittered with expensive entrees. Erin's freckles flushed. She scanned quickly, calculating in her head. And then, calmly, she ordered a salad and a drink, staying within her fun budget. For the first time, she felt in control at a table she used to dread. She laughed with Sarah, paid her bill without guilt, and walked home through the cold night smiling. Because freedom didn't mean never spending. It meant choosing with confidence. Late one evening, Erin lit her candle again. She opened her journal and wrote, "Debt taught me panic. Freedom teaches me peace. The challenge now isn't speed. It's patience." She stared at the words, freckles glowing in candlelight. And for the first time, she felt ready for the marathon. Snow still covered the sidewalks, but January carried a new rhythm. For the first time in years, Erin wasn't running. Her nights weren't frantic delivery shifts. Her mornings weren't haunted by due dates. The sticky notes were gone. The thermometer chart was complete. And in their place, something new had begun, a quiet strength. She no longer felt like a woman hiding from bills. She felt like someone who had crossed a battlefield and lived to tell about it. And that realization burned in her chest until it became impossible to keep it inside. It began on a Thursday morning at work. Erin sat at her desk, oversized hoodie sleeves tugged over her hands, hair messy from a rushed commute. The office buzzed with stale coffee and fluorescent lights, coworkers scrolling through phones, waiting for meetings. Her cubicle neighbor, Amanda, leaned over with a sigh. "Ugh, my credit card bill came in. I swear, I'll never get out of this hole." Erin froze, because that was the same sentence she had whispered 6 months ago. She turned slowly, freckles flushed, and asked softly, "How much?" Amanda shrugged. "Like 8 grand. Minimum payments killing me. I don't even know where to start." Erin's chest tightened. This was her mirror. She opened her notebook, flipped past budgeting charts, and sketched out 2 columns. Snowball. Avalanche. She explained it the way she wished someone had explained it to her. Snowball is smallest to largest, quick wins. Avalanche is highest interest to lowest, fastest mathematically. Both work. Pick the one you can actually stick to. Amanda blinked, mouth slightly open. "You just know this?" Erin laughed awkwardly, hoodie sleeves brushing her freckles. "Trust me, I lived it." By lunch, Amanda wasn't the only one. Coworkers gathered at Erin's desk like moths to light, asking about budgeting apps, grocery hacks, side hustles. And for the first time, Erin wasn't the anxious one. She was the guide. The girl who once sobbed in her hoodie sleeve in a drive-thru was now teaching others how to climb out of their own holes. The shift was dizzying. That night, Erin lit her candle and journaled furiously. Maybe this isn't just my story. Maybe I can help. The thought scared her. Because who was she to teach? She was no financial advisor, no polished expert. She was just Erin Thompson, hoodie, yoga pants, messy desk life. But maybe that was the point. She wasn't perfect. She was proof. The next weekend, Erin invited Amanda to her apartment. Her command center glowed with candlelight, the corkboard now blank but ready. She handed Amanda a fresh stack of sticky notes. "Write each debt. 1 note per card." Amanda hesitated, then scribbled amounts, lining them up on the board. Her shoulders slumped at the sight. Erin touched her arm. "Yeah, it looks scary. Mine once covered the whole board. But you'll knock them down, one by one." Amanda's eyes glistened. "You really think I can?" Erin smiled, freckles glowing in the soft light. "I know you can. Because I did. And I'm not special. I'm just stubborn." Amanda laughed through her tears. And in that moment, Erin realized something powerful. Helping others lit her up more than paying off her own debt ever had. By February, Erin's apartment had become a kind of underground classroom. Every Sunday, instead of wallowing in fear, she hosted what her friends jokingly called Debt Club. 3, then 5, then 7 coworkers crowded into her living room, balancing notebooks on their laps. They shared numbers, shame, and small victories. Erin stood by her corkboard, explaining snowball versus avalanche, showing them her old thermometer chart, walking them through grocery lists and side hustle math. Her oversized hoodie sleeves flopped as she gestured wildly, freckles animated with passion. And for the first time, she felt alive in front of people instead of drained. One evening, after a particularly emotional session where Amanda ripped down her first sticky note, Erin sat alone, staring at the candle flame. Her journal lay open. She wrote, "I thought paying off debt was my victory. But maybe my victory is helping others fight theirs." The words shook her, because she had never pictured herself as a leader. She had always been the anxious one, the messy one, the girl who joked awkwardly to hide her stress. But maybe leadership wasn't about perfection. Maybe it was about scars. And hers had finally become useful. By March, Erin's forum posts online turned into essays. She shared her sticky notes system, her Sunday rituals, her drive-thru breakdown, her final payment story. Strangers messaged her. "You don't know me, but I paid off my first car because of your sticky note trick. Reading your posts made me believe I could actually do this. I thought I was alone. I'm not. Thank you." Each message lit Erin's freckles like fire. Because she wasn't just journaling anymore. She was changing lives. But with influence came temptation. Companies began emailing. "Promote our credit app." Blogs asked, "Want to write for us?" And for a moment, Erin felt the old hunger. The rush of validation, the whisper of easy money. She sat at her command center, rereading one flashy email. It promised free vacations if she pushed their credit offers. Her stomach knotted. That was the trap. The same trap that had nearly buried her. She closed the laptop and whispered, "Not me. Not again." Instead, she doubled down on authenticity. No tricks. No sponsorships. No scams. Just honesty. Her coworkers noticed the change in her. The woman who once mumbled at her desk now stood tall in meetings, freckles steady, voice firm. Not because she had all the answers, but because she had faced her demons and survived. Debt had been her teacher, and now she was ready to teach others. One evening in March, Erin walked home through the thawing city. The snow had melted into puddles, streetlights reflecting off wet pavement. She carried her notebook under her arm, hoodie damp from drizzle, and, as she stepped inside her apartment, she whispered, "This is just the beginning." By April, the air in the city had changed. The bitter frost of winter was gone, replaced with damp sidewalks and the faint smell of new growth. For months, Erin had lived inside her own transformation, sticky notes, debt club, candlelight rituals, and now she stepped into spring with a sense of expansion. But along with the thaw came something Erin hadn't expected, a gnawing question. If she had fought this hard just to reach zero, what came next? Zero wasn't enough anymore. Erin sat at her command center on a Sunday morning, hoodie sleeves pulled over her fingers, freckles catching in the sunlight. Her corkboard now carried not sticky notes of debt, but fresh pages of possibility. Emergency fund, $2,000 saved. Retirement contributions, steady. Amanda's debt club, 9 members strong. It was progress. It was stability. But when Erin stared at the board, her chest ached with restlessness. Because survival had been her purpose for so long that now, with the fire out, she wondered what to build in its place. She opened her journal, scrawled in messy ink. Debt-free is not the dream. Freedom is the foundation. So what's the house I'm building? She tapped the pen against her lips, freckles furrowed, hoodie loose around her shoulders. She thought of Amanda, who had texted last week. "Paid off my first card. Couldn't have done it without you." She thought of strangers online who called her sticky note method life-changing. And a thought sparked, terrifying, thrilling. Maybe this is bigger than me. But with the spark came fear. Erin wasn't an expert. She didn't have degrees or certifications. She was just the girl who once drowned in shame and clawed her way back. What right did she have to lead? She closed her journal, shoved it aside, and whispered, "Stay small." Yet the spark refused to die. That week at work, her boss called her into a meeting. They praised her recent reports, her organized budgeting for the department. "You've got a real knack for numbers," they said. Erin blinked, freckles warm. For years, she had been the messy one, the anxious one. Now someone was noticing her as competent. On her walk home, hoodie pulled against the breeze, she thought. Maybe the girl who journals everything isn't weak. Maybe she's a record keeper, a teacher in disguise. The next Sunday, debt club gathered. 9 co-workers crammed in her living room, balancing notebooks on their knees. Amanda shared her win. Another member, James, admitted he had opened a savings account for the first time in his life. Erin stood by the corkboard, hoodie sleeves flopping as she explained zero-based budgeting. And in the middle of her explanation, James interrupted. "You should teach this. Like, for real. Start a class. People would pay." The room buzzed in agreement. Erin flushed crimson, freckles standing out, laughter tumbling awkwardly from her lips. "Me? No. I'm just..." But Amanda cut her off. "You're not just anything. You saved my life. That's worth something." Erin fell silent. The spark inside her roared. That night, Erin lit her candle and opened her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed into the search bar, "How to become a financial coach." Dozens of results spilled across the screen. Training programs, blogs, stories of ordinary people turning scars into services. Her chest pounded. She whispered to the flame, "Could I really?" But with the vision came doubt. What if people didn't listen? What if she failed? What if her story wasn't enough? Her journal filled with questions. Am I ready to be more than a survivor? Can I be a guide? The weight of it pressed heavy. She blew out the candle, curled under her blanket, hoodie bunched at her chin, freckles pale in the moonlight. And she dreamed restless dreams of classrooms and stages, sticky notes glowing like stars. April bled into May. Erin tested the waters quietly. She posted longer essays online, not just about her story, but about the principles she had learned. Discipline, forgiveness, persistence. One post went semi-viral. Why use sticky notes instead of spreadsheets to kill $10,000 in debt? Hundreds of comments. Messages. Thank yous. And for the first time, Erin felt like her messy life wasn't just something she survived. It was something she could give away. But giving away came at a cost. She spent nights writing instead of resting. Weekends hosting debt club instead of relaxing. Her friends teased her, "Coach Erin." And though she laughed, inside she wrestled with the pressure. Could she hold this? Or was she building a new burden in place of the old? One night in May, She sat by the window, candle flickering, journal open. She wrote, "Debt was my prison. Teaching is my freedom. But freedom without boundaries becomes another trap. I need balance." She underlined the word balance 3 times. Because she knew, if she wasn't careful, her new passion could consume her the way debt once had. At work, Amanda pulled her aside. "I told my cousin about you. She wants to join Debt Club. You're really making a difference, Erin." Erin smiled shyly, hoodie sleeves brushing her freckles. "Thanks. But it's just us, small stuff." Amanda shook her head. "No, it's not small. It's saving people." Erin swallowed hard. Because maybe Amanda was right. By June, Erin's apartment couldn't hold everyone. Debt Club had doubled. People sat on the floor, leaning against the couch, notebooks piled high. Someone brought snacks. Someone else brought wine. It wasn't just numbers anymore. It was community. And Erin, awkward and anxious as ever, stood at the center, freckles glowing, hoodie loose, voice clear. She taught. She encouraged. She laughed at her own mistakes. And she realized she wasn't just paying off debt anymore. She was planning a movement. That night, alone with her candle, she wrote in her journal, "The girl who once drowned is now pulling others to shore. Maybe this is what I was meant for." The thought terrified her, but also set her free. The summer sun bled through the blinds, painting her small apartment in gold. Erin sat at her desk. The command center that had once been littered with sticky notes of shame and now stood clean, reborn as a hub of purpose. The corkboard was different now. It no longer screamed numbers owed. It no longer hissed with reminders of panic. Instead, it carried a single handwritten phrase, pinned to the center. "Debt-free is the foundation. Freedom is the building." She leaned back in her chair, hoodie sleeves tugged over her hands, freckles glowing in the morning light. And she realized something she never thought she'd feel 6 months earlier. Peace. 6 months. That was all it had taken to turn a life from panic to power. 6 months of cold deliveries, of candles burning into the night, of sticky notes ripped down one by one. 6 months of tears in the drive-thru, laughter with Debt Club, awkward posts online that became lifelines for strangers. It felt both impossibly short and achingly long. And as Erin sat in the sunlight, she thought about what had really changed. Because the zero balance was just the surface. The deeper shift was something money couldn't measure. It was the silence where shame used to hum. It was the laughter where fear once suffocated. It was the spark in her chest that whispered, "You are not broken, you are becoming." She closed her eyes, remembering the first night, the fluorescent lights of the drive-thru, her father's disappointment echoing in her head. She had felt so small then, so incapable, so certain she would never crawl out of that hole. But that version of Erin didn't know what lay ahead. Didn't know the sticky notes would one day run out. Didn't know the candlelight would reveal resilience instead of failure. Didn't know that the very mess she feared would become the map she used to guide others. And she thought, if only I could whisper back to her, "Hold on. You will not be here forever." But Erin also knew the truth. Not everyone made it. She had seen coworkers still drowning, friends still lost in the cycle. And that's why she couldn't stop at her own victory. Her journey was no longer hers alone. It belonged to Amanda, to James, to the 9, then 12, then 15 people who crammed into her apartment with notebooks. It belonged to the strangers online who whispered, "Me too." It belonged to anyone who thought their messy desk, their oversized hoodie, their panic attacks disqualified them from freedom. Because Erin was living proof that the messy could still be mighty. That night, Debt Club met for the last time in her living room. There were too many people now. The couch overflowed, the floor crowded, someone even leaned against the doorframe. Erin stood by the corkboard, hoodie sleeves flopping as she gestured, freckles flushed with passion. "Okay," she said, voice clear. "We've all learned snowball and avalanche. We've built budgets. We've faced shame and laughed anyway. Now it's time to take this beyond these walls." Amanda raised her hand. "Beyond these walls." Erin smiled, shy but steady. "I've been writing, sharing online. People are listening. And I think, maybe, it's time we make this bigger. A community, a workshop, something real." Murmurs rippled. Excitement. Hope. For once, Erin didn't shrink from it. She let the spark in her chest catch fire. After everyone left, Erin sat in the candlelight, journal open. She wrote slowly, deliberately. "I will not let my debt story end with zero. I will use it to light the way for others. This is not about perfection. It's about persistence. And I will carry that forward. She underlined the word persistence until the page nearly tore. And when she looked up at the flame, she whispered, "This is only the beginning." Weeks later, Erin stood outside a rented community center. Her hoodie was still oversized, her freckles still visible, but beneath them her posture had changed. She wasn't slouching. She wasn't hiding. She carried a box of notebooks, sticky notes, and markers, the same tools that had saved her. Inside, a dozen chairs waited. More would come. Amanda had spread the word. Others had shared online. This was no longer debt club in a cramped apartment. This was a workshop, a movement. Erin's hands trembled as she sat up, but her chest burned with resolve. When the first attendees trickled in, she smiled awkwardly, laughed nervously, but began anyway. "Hi, I'm Erin. I used to owe $10,000. I thought I'd drown in it. But 6 months later, I'm free. And I want to show you how." Dozens of eyes looked back at her, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a fraud. She felt like a lighthouse. After the session, Amanda hugged her tight. "You're doing it," she whispered. Erin blinked, freckles damp with tears. "I'm terrified." Amanda laughed. "Good. That means you care. And people need that." That night, Erin sat at her command center once more. Her corkboard bore a new thermometer chart, this time not for debt, but for community. She had drawn 100 lines. Each represented a person she hoped to reach, to guide, to free. The first 10 were already filled. She smiled, hoodie sleeves brushing her journal, candlelight flickering across her freckles. The race wasn't over. It had only changed shape. Erin leaned back, closed her eyes, and let herself imagine the future. Debt-free wasn't the end. The end would be when her story was no longer hers alone, when thousands of sticky notes fell from thousands of walls, when laughter replaced shame in homes she would never see. The end would be when the word freedom wasn't rare, but ordinary. And for the first time, Erin didn't just dream of survival. She dreamed of legacy. She whispered to the candle, "Panic taught me fear. Payoff taught me discipline. Teaching taught me purpose. And purpose will carry me further than debt ever dragged me down." Her freckles glowed in the flame's soft light. Her oversized hoodie sagged around her shoulders. Her messy desk still carried crumbs from last night's snack. Nothing about her looked like a polished expert. And yet, she was exactly the guide people needed. Because imperfection was the point. Her scars had become her syllabus. Her shame had become her strength. Her survival had become her story. In the quiet of that summer night, Erin smiled. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't waiting for rescue. She was building it. Not just for herself. For everyone who thought freedom was impossible. She knew now, impossible was just another debt. And she was done paying it.